Good day, everyone, and welcome to our Momenta Digital Industry Impact webinar. Today on Intelligent Supply Chains. My name is Ken Forster, and I'm the Executive Director of Momenta. So just a few housekeeping notes. Today's presentation is being recorded. We plan for a Q&A session at the end, so please submit questions in the BrightTalk question pane anytime throughout the presentation. Links to the presentation and the recording will be sent out to all of you within 24 hours. Today we have an all-star panel of Momenta portfolio companies and their founding CEOs. Mahesh Varina of Cloudleaf, based in Palo Alto, Neil Furukawa of Akua, also based in the San Francisco Bay Area, and Tim Williams of NanoThings, based in New York. I'll be emceeing the first part today, and Ben, our advisory partner, will be sharing insights on supply chain along the way as well. So Ben and I will start with a brief bit of context setting, establishing the opportunity and challenge for supply chain today. Then we'll turn it over to each of our companies to discuss what I call impact studies, discussing best practices in helping their clients and customers create impact with their solutions. Finally, we'll run a Q&A session at the end and we'll close up. So a little bit about Momenta. Momenta delivers digital innovation, growth, and leadership across energy, manufacturing, smart spaces, and supply chain. Since 2012, we've advised over 125 clients, placed over 200 leaders, and invested behind 40-plus innovators with 6 exits. Led by deep industry practitioners, our global presence and sector focus provides our clients with highly relevant innovation, growth, and talent. Now, we consider ourselves venture industrialists, building a sustainable ecosystem and financial value in our portfolio of companies across our 2 funds. Today, we're pleased to feature 3 of our premier companies, Cloudleaf, Akua, and NanoThings. So let's talk a little bit about digital industry and set some context first. So digital industry to us is not necessarily a singular event, but a culmination of technology waves, leading from centralized computing to distributed and ubiquitous computing. Powered by Moore's Law, this has led to dramatic decreases in the cost of sensors, bandwidth, processing, and storage, making technology accessible for even the simplest of use cases. The technologies emerging from these waves, from internet, social, and mobile to big data analytics, IoT, and robotics, are converging to create what we like to call combinatorial innovation. Jeremy Rifkin, in his seminal book, The Zero Marginal Cost Society, outlined how this innovation is manifesting itself in new business models, economic paradigms, and disruptive scenarios. As an example, if you take internet plus mobile plus geopositioning, coupling that with the new economic paradigm of sharing economy, you end up catalyzing ride-sharing companies like Lyft and Uber. This is the foundational patterns for what we think of as digital industry. Now, the adoption of these technologies to create these new business scenarios really on these key digital industry sectors such as energy, manufacturing, supply chain is forecast to unleash over $100 trillion of value for society and industry by 2025 per the World Economic Forum. So creating new business opportunities for industry and higher standards of living for society. So it's a big, big number. So with that, let me turn it over to Ben to talk about supply chain very specifically.
Thank you, Ken. Supply chain gained a lot of attention during the pandemic as consumers experienced supply chain disruption firsthand. In reality, supply chain has always been instrumental to our life and our society. Let's take a U.S. food supply chain as an example. 9 million tons of food is lost in USA every year due to inefficient distribution. That's enough food to feed 9 million people. 48 million Americans are affected by unsafe food, causing $55 billion in lost productivity. Given the huge impact, one would assume we have got our acts together. However, according to Business Continuity Institute's research, 69% of organizations lack food supply chain visibility, and 56% suffered from at least one supply chain disruption in 12 months. The above stats are all pre-COVID. There's still a lot to be done to improve supply chain management. Supply Supply chain management is fundamentally about solving the balancing act of two things. On one hand, how do you improve service level, get goods to people's hands in the right amount at the right time? On the other hand, how do you optimize cost? Depending on particular industry verticals, that cost could go anywhere between 2% to 10% of the revenue. The costs typically fall under three buckets. Transportation and logistics could take up to 50, even 70% of total supply chain cost. Warehousing cost could go from 15% for highly compact products to 50% in the retail vertical. Finally, inventory makes up for the remaining 15 to 20% of the total cost. For global supply chain professionals, they're experiencing unprecedented times right now. Even before COVID-19 hit us, we the consumers are rewriting the script for service level. We want it all. We want fast delivery, no extra cost, and we want variety. With COVID, we can add to that list. What we want could swing dramatically from month to month. We want the supply chain to respond very quickly, as our personal safety and comfort are really at stake. The pressure we consumers generate is being felt by every layer of the supply chain. First and foremost, how could we make the last mile more efficient? Last mile accounts for a whopping 41% of all supply chain costs. For example, Amazon and Walmart have been hiring hundreds of thousands of workers, to really fill the demand. Going further upstream, the warehousing sector is seeing a lot of interest in automation. Labor cost is almost 70% of all warehousing cost. The room created by human social distancing is now taken by robots and automated guided vehicles, or AGVs. Where many sectors see demand suppressed, the logistics market is expected to grow from $2.7 trillion to $3.5 trillion, as they provide the muscle to make the global supply chain agile. Software is behind almost every supply chain digital innovations. As a $15 billion market, supply chain software has been with us for decades. However, we have reasons to believe a new wave of software-powered innovation is unfolding. If you look back in the late 90s to mid-2000s, ERP software became prevalent within enterprise, leading to internal systems of records. And in the following decade, the cross-enterprise orchestration became mainstream, so companies could coordinate their efforts in response to change. And in the last 5 years, the proliferation of sensors, IoT devices, make it possible to sense disruptions at any time, anywhere, and even at the item level, as some of the portfolio companies will share next. Going forward, there are endless opportunities to mine these three types of data for insights and improve every facet of service level and every dimension of supply chain cost. Through our research at Momenta, we found that supply chain leaders are already making major digital moves. By doing so, they achieved some outstanding outcomes. For example, pharmaceutical company Mylan broke down the one-size-fits-all supply chain model. They implemented micro supply chains based on the unique demand and supply patterns for particular product groups. In just a few years, that approach took them to 60-plus countries from a few and tripled their revenue. As another example, through robotic automation of the distribution center, Walmart was able to improve its warehouse throughput by 13%, taking billions out of its inventory cost. If you take a step back, you can see that the digital innovations are dramatically changing how supply chain is operating in the future. It used to be rigid, dark, reactive, and manual. In the future, it's going to be agile, visible, autonomous, and resilient. So in the following sections, we have invited 3 Momenta portfolio companies. They will discuss how they are each contributing to the digital transformation of supply chains. Back to you, Ken.
Thank you, Ben. So how is this digital transformation of supply chain going? Microsoft released a seminal report in 2019 titled IoT Signals Report, where they interviewed over 3,000 business leaders responsible for the digital transformations. Key industries were manufacturing, transportation, retail, healthcare, and government. In this report, they outlined that 88% of respondents see IoT as critical to their business. Awesome. 85% were already well into their first IoT project, even better. Yet only 23% had seen success. Uh-oh. So even so, a whopping 75% expected to deploy even more. So high intent, yet low impact. The reasons outlined of why these didn't work really are not that surprising. Pilots aren't easy to scale or productize. There's unclear business value or ROI at the beginning. The impact takes too long. An interesting note that insufficient technology together with the wrong leadership and support rated 4 and 5. So 88% intent, 23% impact look like an opportunity to us. It is this observation that led us to create the Digital Industry Impact Series. For all the low stats of project success and talk of pilot purgatory, we're constantly seeing real-world impact in our engagements and across our portfolio companies. So we really asked ourselves, why the gap here? And we created this series for practitioners, by practitioners, to showcase some of these winning companies and feature their leaders sharing best practices on helping their clients achieve impact in their business. So the first of this series focused on smarter assets, and this featured Rev2, Site Machine, and SmartX. In the second of the series, we focus on supply chain, with specific Cloud Leaf, Akua, and NanoThings. And so with that, I want to turn it over to the first of our CEOs, Mahesh Varina of Cloud Leaf.
Good morning, everybody. Thank you, Ken and Ben, for the opportunity to join the webinar today. Again, my name is Mahesh Varina, CEO of Cloud Leaf. This morning, Ken and Ben have very eloquently laid out the case for how digitization will shape the future of supply chain. Legacy systems and solutions are not able to meet many of the challenges Ben discussed. And visibility is one of the key foundations for the future of supply chains. Today, as Ken said, you'll hear 3 interesting perspectives about visibility and how we are using advanced technologies to solve this problem. I will talk about a brief overview on who we are, what we do, our solution, but most importantly, some very interesting customer case studies that are being deployed at scale. So we are a 5-year-old company based here out of Silicon Valley. Our mission, we are focused on delivering what we call a digital visibility platform for continuous visibility and intelligence into supply chain operations and execution. We focus on a few industries, primarily the cold chain, pharma, life sciences, food and beverage, logistics service providers like 3PL, and manufacturing. We're a venture-backed company with world-class investors and partners like Momenta, and also proud to have Mr. John Chambers, ex-chairman and CEO of Cisco. So what's the problem we are solving? When you look at companies, when they produce their products or manufacture their goods, they know their products are in good condition. But once the products start moving, regardless of the amount of planning that's done and optimization, all kinds of problems begin to appear. What kind of problems? If you look at the problems, where is my stuff? What condition is it in? Is it in compliance? Do we have the right inventory at the right place, right time? Is my shipment delayed, right? These are kinds of, these questions still plague the industry. And CEOs and boardrooms are wondering, how come I can order a book from Amazon and know exactly where it is and what time is it going to get delivered, but I can't trace where my $10 million is, $10 million worth of orders are at any given time with the same accuracy. So if you peel the onion, different companies, different industries, same problem over and over again across this source, make, distribute in the supply chain. And you ask, why is this? And the fundamental problem is visibility. And visibility equals data. And we at Cloudleaf see three main reasons for the failure in visibility today in supply chain. The first one is data silos, data fragmentation, data accuracy within the system, supply chain systems across within a company or across their supply chain organization like suppliers and 3PLs and so on. The second is as products move from a supplier to a carrier through the warehouse, many dark spots. And this is where sensors and IoT and edge intelligence is kicking in, where you can pick up signals from the movement of products itself. And the third factor, all data needs context to make sense of it. Context like, where is my product? Is it stranded at the airport? Is it in customs? What is the weather, traffic, so on? And most of the transactional systems today lack the context. So over the last 2 decades, companies made large investments, spent billions of dollars in supply chain technologies, planning and optimization tools. Yet, regardless of the amount of planning done, there is always a variance between the plan and the execution. And this delta variance is what is costing supply chains billions of dollars today. So our vision and goal is to really help these companies minimize this variance and provide visibility and intelligence in real time so they can respond and take action in real time. So quick overview of our platform. It's a cloud-native SaaS platform, has 3 core pillars. We call the digital twin to model the supply chain. Second is we ingest a lot of real-time data from sensors, context, and business signals. Third is our proprietary AML algorithms to process data and give out alerts, notifications, and predictive insights in real time so you can respond and take action. We are device and data agnostic and cloud agnostic. We run on Azure, AWS, GCP. And most of the product is based on the ground truth from the sensors that are attached to the products. We offer 3 applications, operations intelligence within the 4 walls, logistics intelligence when things are in transit, and finally, inventory and asset intelligence across the supply chain network. 400 APIs, easy to deploy, up and running within hours to days, and scale as you go. So now let me jump into some of the case studies and look at more of the fun stuff here. The first case study is a global pharma manufacturer that processes, one of their divisions that process blood plasma for making life-saving drugs. And they process over 8 million liters of plasma. Plasma is a rare material, very costly process when you move this through the supply chain. And the challenge they have is when plasma gets moved around, it has to be kept at minus 20 degrees all the time. And any timeout of refrigeration, as they call it, if it exceeds more than an hour to hour and a half, that's the FDA infraction. And the plasma has to go through extensive testing and quarantine to be requalified. And these excursions cost these companies millions of dollars per incident. So the process was completely manual. And today, after we installed our system and within days to weeks, we were able to light them up. Hundreds of thousands of pallet movements that happen across their 120 collection centers, the storage facilities, and 4 or 5 factories. We're able to essentially reduce the excursions to 0, saving them millions of dollars and saving lives. And the return on investment is almost 20x. One incident pays for years of their cost of installing these technologies. The second case study I'd like to talk about, this is also in the cold chain, but from a slightly different angle. One of the world's largest cold chain container fleet management companies called CSafe Global. They operate out of 40 different service centers, 175 airport points where their customers operate through, tens of thousands of containers and thousands of container movements per month. And through this process, again, the challenges are precisely knowing the distribution of their assets, in this case the containers, around the globe at any given time, right inventory, right place, improving the utilization of their assets, eliminating condition excursions, ETA delays, product loss, compliance, all these issues. Today, before Cloudleaf went in, it was limited visibility using data loggers and so on, a lot of manual processes. And they needed a solution to completely automate this for not only their own operations, to present to their customers a transparent visibility. So we're in the process. This one is not fully rolled out yet, but completely automating their fleet end-to-end using our platform for continuous visibility for their fleet operations and condition monitoring and so on. Very rapid deployment phase because of the COVID-19 situation. They want to be in a situation to be able to minimize any disruptions in the vaccine supply chain starting January. So the next case study I want to talk about is in the manufacturing industry. In this case, it's more operational intelligence. A large white goods appliance manufacturer, one of the world's leaders, 5 different sites, 13 facilities, millions of square feet, and their challenge is 100,000 plus assets and machines that move around the facilities, as well as monitoring the uptime, downtime, and utilization of these machines. Completely manual process. The challenge was really running people around with pencil and paper end of every quarter to track down the assets, knowing when the machine is up and down and so on, and writing down millions of dollars in asset value annually and utilization impact. We completely digitized this operation with sensors on each machine, knowing the uptime, downtime, and movement, entire movement of across their facilities and operations, and with a single click, they can see each asset, its attributes, location, audit record, and utilization 24/7, eliminating again millions of dollars in annual write-downs and ROI in less than 6 months. So these are kind of scale case studies that are happening now, real world across, and these have been operational. A couple of these have been operational over a year and a half, 2 years. I'm very happy customers there. So with that, I'd like to thank you all, available to answer any questions end of the session. Now I'd like to introduce our next speaker, Neil Furukawa, CEO of Akua, to share how they're attacking visibility and risk management in supply chains. Thank you.
Thank you, Manesh. My name is Neil Furukawa, a founder and CEO of Akua. You have heard about the challenges today in today's supply chain. Akua is tackling these challenges with a supply chain risk management platform, delivering ROI to our customers through real-time data visibility and analytics. Akua is a cloud-based in-transit visibility and analytics software as a service platform that does persistent tracking and monitoring of cargo from the manufacturer suppliers to the end customers. A big challenge today is ubiquitous wireless coverage of IoT networks across the globe. There are a lot of cool IoT sensors coming out in the marketplace, and real-time transportation platforms are being introduced. However, there are no reliable end-to-end real-time data coverage for global transportation. There are areas of coverage at the start, mid, and end points that rely on fixed gateways. However, getting a true ubiquitous and continuous end-to-end coverage of these sensors are not available today. So Akua set out to solve these challenges by creating a unique mobile IoT gateway device designed as a custom ISO 17712 high security seal. This seal serves as a replacement for a security boat seal that provides physical locking of either containerized cargo or Roro equipment, and the gateway itself is IoT sensor agnostic, and what that means is that it's designed to backhaul a wide range of IoT protocols that's using the sensors that include Bluetooth Low Energy, Zigbee, and LoRa. This allows our customers the freedom to select whatever sensor technology that meet their business needs. The gateway backhauls this data, this real-time data, to our cloud platform via the global cellular network and or the satellite network. Given that the sensors and gateway follows the cargo, the solution itself is transport independent. Our market focus is primarily international intermodal shipments, where we see the biggest black hole in data today. Individual transport segments, such as domestic trucking, companies, rail lines, and ocean carriers, provide some level of tracking data. However, getting a persistent end-to-end data for the entire journey is not readily available today. Specifically with international shipments, we have had very early interest in realizing the ROI for high consequence cargo owners. When we say high consequence, for example, we're talking about the U.S. government, Department of Defense, and DHS, some manufacturers of high precision machinery, equipment that gets shipped all over the world, pharma and biotech companies, and some high-tech electronics such as semiconductor materials and equipment, and high-value perishables. We are focused directly on stakeholder ROI to provide data to address transportation inefficiencies that lead to significant cost savings, such as detention and port storage fees. Route deviations continue to be a large issue, and having a real-time visibility allows better utilization of resources. Cargo insurance companies are encouraged that patterns in container theft and vandalism can be analyzed via real-time breach data. Cargo sensors that measure environmental conditions provide continuous persistent data. Finally, proof of departure and delivery are based on accurate geofencing that allow quicker terms of financial transactions. Akua's business model is based on a full managed service offering. We do not burden the customers with having to do capital purchases of hardware and or software. An annual subscription to have access to the data provides a simple business transaction. Akua also handles all gateways, forward and reverse logistics, and works with the container owners to coordinate placement of assets. Customers are provided an account on Akua Track that provides a role-based setup so the right data can get to the right logistics professional and also can be shared among all stakeholders. We also provide a REST API so that the data can be ingested into other freight visibility platforms. Finally, our architecture was designed with data security and integrity as a priority. Our cybersecurity heritage created a hardened cloud platform and a gateway architecture for data in transit and data at rest that have been evaluated and tested by Sandia National Labs. So I'd like to talk about 3 case studies. The first case study is an industry leader of Idaho potatoes, where patented seeds from the farm are sold to farms all over the world. This particular shipment was sold to an emerging farm in Algeria. The seeds must be kept at a certain temperature and humidity throughout the entire journey from Idaho to Algeria. The challenge for this particular cargo was that it was transshipped from refrigerated trucks to refrigerated containers, reefers, back over the ocean, back to refrigerated trucks for the final journey in the country of Algeria. There are many opportunities for environmental issues that are normally not caught until the seeds do not germinate in the ground. That is too late. In this case study, we used our gateway to continually monitor the sensors located inside the seed bags and not having to rely on the reports from either the trucks or the reefer container company. Our platform immediately alerted the seed shipper that the temperature in the port of Houston exceeded their threshold. So a replacement shipment of seeds were dispatched by truck in time for the vessel sailing. This type of real-time action resulted in a successful customer shipment and an ability to know where the issue occurred for insurance purposes. The second case study is on unauthorized access of containers. This second study involves a supplier of goods that does regular shipments from Mexico to the U.S. land border. They always use environmental monitors in their shipments, primarily for forensics for spoiled cargo. ACUA's mobile gateway now allows the supplier to monitor the sensors in real time across the entire journey to look for issues before a shipment is accepted at their DC warehouse across the border. A regular opening pattern was noticed on these containers and was geolocated using our system to a warehouse in Mexico. You can see the blip in the temperature occurring in a regular instance. This data was used for follow-on investigation and likely was a transport of unauthorized cargo across the border. Instead of a random inspection delay, now specific cargo can be alerted in advance for border inspections. There is also potential for customs green lane type of concept. This third and final case study I'm presenting illustrates a frequent occurrence we see in global freight. Ocean carriers reroute to a different port of discharge, which results in misplaced containers, temporarily misplaced containers that requires a route change. This disruption of asset and resource planning by the receiver results in delays and penalties. This particular customer, as illustrated here, also experienced a lack of visibility of their cargo after the port of discharge using a local trucking company in the Middle East. Since ACUA was tracking the shipment in real time from Nebraska to Azerbaijan, the supplier was able to see the exact location of the container that was redirected to Mersin, Turkey, instead of the planned destination of the country of Georgia. They were able to deploy another local trucking service to pick up the goods and drive the container to Azerbaijan and track that end last mile shipment in real time and update the ETA to their customer. That helped them with customer satisfaction. Great. Thank you for your time today, and I'd like to now introduce you to Tim Williams from NanoThings.
Thank you, Neil. As Neil mentioned, my name is Tim Williams. I am co-founder and CEO of NanoThings. NanoThings is a low-cost connected sensor solution that enables autonomous physical traceability of virtually any product from source to store. My friends here have already established the size and nature of the waste problem in the supply chain, so I won't beat that dead horse. And I think the industry has long been aware that lack of traceability is the reason for this problem. And so that really begs the question, if the industry has known that traceability is the cause for these huge problems, why hasn't it been solved yet, or at least significantly improved over the last years to decades? And the reality is that despite a whole host of different attempts to do so, mostly involving new software solutions, none of them address the fact that the sensor technologies and the methodologies used to collect quality control data are too laborious and expensive to solve the problem. You see, the temperature sensor market is dominated by unscalable and overpriced devices like unconnected data loggers, which are incredibly labor intensive and make data extraction really difficult, and cellular devices, which are way too expensive and have really poor battery life and therefore are used by a mere fraction of the market. So we at NanoThings said there's got to be a better way, and so we put our heads together and we completely reimagined what the temperature sensor or the connected sensor should look like. And lo and behold, we call it NanoTag. The NanoTag is a wireless smart label that autonomously monitors the health and location of products either in transit or static. We designed the nanotech specifically to address the shortcomings of all other types of devices in the market today. Starting with size, at 90 by 90 by 1 millimeter, for we Americans that's 3.5 by 3.5 inches by 1 millimeter, the nanotech is the smallest connected sensor in the world. Now, despite its really small size, the nanotech has a 2+ year active battery life. Contrast that with your average cellular device, which can live for maybe a week, and your average data logger, which can live for maybe up to a month. The nanotag, as I mentioned before, is completely wireless. It operates over a protocol called LoRaWAN that gives it a 10-mile read and transmit range. Embedded inside the nanotag are different types of environmental sensors. Our stock environmental sensor is, of course, a temperature sensor, and customers can optionally add on an accelerometer if they want to monitor impact, vibration, tilt, and free fall, for example. And last but not least, the nanotag is embedded with location tracking logic that allows it to triangulate and geofence location. And finally, the nanotag is designed to be disposable such that it does not require any special handling or, most importantly, reverse logistics. So now I'm going to explain how the whole system works together. I'm just going to read this word for word because I think this slide very aptly describes what our solution does. So first, we replace antiquated and overpriced devices with low-cost nanotags. The nanotags instantly transform any product into an intelligent, self-diagnosing, connected thing. Next, we replace humans with gateways at every touch point in the chain. Gateways save labor costs and guarantee accurate and consistent data capture. And finally, we replace data logs and clipboards with the NanoThings Cloud. NanoThings Cloud makes data available anywhere and anytime via API or dashboard. That means that we can integrate with virtually any legacy system that a customer may already have in place. So now I want to go into a case study of one of our customers, which is a top 10 grocery chain in the United States. The problem that our customer was having was that they were manually probing inbound loads at their distribution centers. And this was not providing assurance of temperature during transit, and furthermore, it was also costing them over $1 million a year in associated labor. The image below depicts this problem perfectly, where a manufacturer or a supplier that would be transporting a load of product to a distribution center might have had a temperature abuse incident in transit. Now, this happens all the time. Reefer units break, trucks break down, things just happen. Now, if your process for doing a QC check is manually probing at the time of delivery, you may not be catching the temperature abuse incidents that happened prior to. And that is what our customer was having a major problem with. Their QC checks weren't flagging all the temperature abuse incidents because they weren't seeing them. And so all of this product was passing through their distribution centers and being sold to people like you and I down at the stores. And obviously that caused major problems. So they realized the nature of their problem, and they implemented NanoThings across their cold chain, and I mean across their entire cold chain. So they are now requiring their suppliers to have NanoThings integrated. They lit up all of their distribution centers, and we're in the process of lighting up their stores as well. Now, what this does is it gives them complete visibility across their entire cold chain. And you can see here, there's 3 different examples here of how we're able to do so. In the first example, we've validated that this particular lane or this route was perfect, no incidents at all. And in the other 2 examples, in the middle example, we're showing a temperature that we identified, a temperature abuse incident in transit between the manufacturer's processing facility and our customer's distribution facility. And in the bottom example, we are showing that we actually can identify when temperature abuse incidents happen within our customer's own custody at their own distribution center. So we can catch all of these events no matter where they're happening and ultimately prevent spoiled and dangerous food from ever landing on the store shelves and being sold to customers. And so The results really speak for themselves. By lighting up our customers' cold chain, for the first time ever, they have quality control visibility all the way to supplier facilities. They completely automated temperature monitoring, which cut labor associated with temperature checks by 100%. And of course, we gave them FSMA compliance. But most importantly, we empowered this customer with the objective, accurate analytics they needed to make data-driven decisions to improve their cold chain operations. To give an example of the types of analytics NanoThings empowers customers with, we provide supplier and carrier scorecarding, which is the process of monitoring individual entities over time and comparing each entity against one another to understand who's performing the best and the worst. So for example, we can identify which carrier or lane has the most temperature abuse incidents, or which cold storage facility has the best service time. And we can even monitor turnover rates at a DC. And with this data, our customers can continually optimize their cold chains over time. And all of this has been made possible because of NanoThings. Thank you very much, and now I'll turn it back over to Ken.
All right. Thank you, Ben, Mahesh, Neil, and Tim for these timely insights on supply chain. As a reminder to the audience, please start entering your questions in the panel to the right of your screen if you'd like to ask them as well. So I wanted to summarize kind of the key points. Typically, I would take some kind of pithy, if you will, view of the insights that have come, but interestingly enough, I'm just going to go back and I'm going to repeat what Ben Tao set up for us early on as the 4 attributes of kind of this supply chain of the future. One, it's agile, customer demand driven all the way back, and I think you've seen that across all of our examples. It's visible, real-time, end-to-end, and I think Neil at Akuid did a good job of describing in his customs example some of the value and benefits that come out of that visibility. It's proactive, so continuous operations, and I think Mahesh at CloudLeaf did a good job in his operational insights example of talking about the value of that in terms of applying what he calls a digital twin across supply chain, and the type of modeling that comes out of that and the ability to predict. And if you can predict, you can proact in all of that as well. Finally, it's autonomous, so machine-centric versus human-centric at that point. And I think Tim at NanoThings does a good job of referring to this as really contactless, if you will, and showed some good examples in his cold chain examples of the value of that overall. So it's agile, visible, proactive, and autonomous. So not only were we proposing to give real-world use cases of each of these things, but to demonstrate these same attributes that we see as the future of supply chain, in which I believe in this great digital accelerator that we like to call COVID-19 has moved us forward even faster in terms of seeing these things and the need for these things in supply chain use cases. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and move to Q&A. And we've already got a handful of questions. So please, again, the pane at the right, if you want to go ahead and start entering your questions, that would be great. The easy one is, yes, you will get the presentation deck afterwards. Within 24 hours, we will have that, as well as the link to this as well. So let me start with one of the first. In many IoT solutions, the biggest challenge is really that last mile, i.e. capturing the data from the assets in transit. What underlying technology such as RFID, LPWAN, cellular has been used in a lot of these applications? Perhaps I'll start with you, Tim, since you mentioned it very specifically in your example.
Sure, absolutely. So NanoThings, when we were developing this solution, we scoured the world and looked at every single type of wireless. We knew it needed to be wireless, of course, but every type of wireless technology under the sun that spanned from RFID, NFC, Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, all the different flavors of cellular, et cetera. And we ultimately settled on LoRaWAN, which is a flavor of LPWAN, because not only we get extremely long range, we get incredibly strong battery life out of the devices as well. So we truly believe that LPWAN and specifically LoRa is the best way to go to ultimately provide true contactless and autonomous temperature monitoring, or quite honestly, any type of sensor monitoring in the supply chain.
Neil and Mahesh, your guys' perspective and your protocol of choice for both end detection and backhaul?
This is Neil. The challenges that we've seen with our customers is the last mile is typically in areas that is not very populated and very often does not have a lot of technology. So we're talking about farms in the middle of deserts, DoD shipping equipment to temporary bases set up in the middle of operating zones. So what we've found is that the challenges in getting some of the gateways for these new emerging protocols and technologies has been a bit challenging. And that's why we developed this mobile gateway. So the way we solve this problem is that the most ubiquitous coverage, may not be the cheapest, but the most ubiquitous coverage in the road is actually cellular today and satellite. So we use the cellular and satellite as a backhaul technology so the data can always get back to the cloud. But the sensor technology can take advantage of these new protocols that are in the marketplace today, such as LPWAN, LoRaWAN, Sigfox, Bluetooth Low Energy. So you can minimize the cost of the sensors to a point of it being disposable, but still have a network available to get your data.
Excellent. Yeah. Mahesh, any thoughts, sir?
Yeah, Ken, it's a great question. As in that question, what's used in CSAFE. So our point of view in CSAFE, again, it's a cellular backhaul. The containers are instrumented with a sensory device like light and shock, vibration, temp, humidity, what have you. And since these are moving around almost across the globe, cellular backhaul is the most viable way to do this, right? And again, Neil said it right. In Cloudleaf, we are kind of sensor and device agnostic. We've seen one solution doesn't fit all, right? There's varieties of these low-power Bluetooth, RFID, even in some cases where they're extremely cost-sensitive. The technologies like NanoThings are very interesting, the whole LPWAN and LoRa. So we see a varieties of edge technologies there, Ken, but cellular backhaul and with 5G coming on would be ubiquitous in my view.
Yeah, very, very much so agree. So Ben, I think this one is probably heading towards you. Supply chain innovations have been going on for decades. What makes the intelligent supply chain the same or different from previous waves of innovation?
Well, I think, Ken, I think the goal for supply chain innovation had been, remarkably stable. And it's first and foremost about meeting customer service levels as defined by your business strategy and business model. And secondly, to do so by minimizing, the cost, right, from OPEX, CAPEX, balance sheet cash point of view. And in the past decades, the internet really helped establish the system records, as we mentioned during the discussion, to help you to gain the transparency within your enterprise. And then internet really helped to connect those IT systems together to help us to really look across the enterprise to gain visibility across the trading partners. But however, those visibility still has many, many gaps here, and data often incompatible, and integration are often not real time, and also very costly. If you think about all the things we learned through the three speakers here, they're really bringing a new wave of technologies here, leveraging the real-time sensors to bring fresh data, high-quality data to really light up the supply chain blind spots in the previous generation, last decade of supply chains. Supply chains also no longer linear, right? It's through control tower technologies, any pairs of activities, any pairs of parties, now they can really see each other. And finally, through robotic automation that's being adopted across all the different warehouses, it's really possible to turn that visibility into real-time actions. All the three things are really something we're just seeing to be rolled out at a global scale. So we are truly in very exciting times right now, Ken.
And speaking of exciting times, Mahesh, I think this one is probably steering towards you. So given COVID, what are your thoughts on the global vaccine distribution challenge and how could Cloudleaf help?
Yeah, great question, Ken. It's a huge monumental challenge. As if you look at some of the numbers annually, just for the flu season, we ship about 150 million vaccines or so doses. And now it's literally 4 times that, right? Anywhere from 300 to 700 million doses just for U.S. and then billions globally. So I don't think cold chains are set up for this scale. So there is a lot of activity, as we saw from Operation Warp Speed and so on going on how to stand up capacity to, especially in the distribution channels to the last mile, so that these vaccines are not spoiled. Especially in COVID case, most of these vaccines will originate. We've been working very closely with a number of partners in that space, the manufacturers and bulk drug producers, fill and finish guys, and so on, and carriers. They are going to be in the cryo temperatures, minus 70 to minus 80 degrees through transport, from the seed production to bulk drug through the final fill and finish. And then at the tail end, it's a 2 to 8 degree temperature. So it's going to be a monumental challenge. So like one example, CSAFE is gearing up their entire fleet and putting up capacity so that they could reach and distribute these worldwide. So I don't think the industry is prepared enough, but there's a lot of effort being put in place. And then the solutions like what we are talking today here on this panel will help kind of reduce these vaccine losses, right? Billions of dollars are lost every year for inefficacy of vaccine during transport.
This one's a general question for the audience. Probably I'll have Neil take first shot on it, but how do you deal with the CapEx that is implied by the implementation of IoT in supply chain? I.e., are there alternative models to finance such things?
Yeah, so I think I touched on this a little bit in my presentation. The way that that is a serious concern, because a lot of companies who do not quite understand or know exactly what they want to implement are unwilling to spend a lot of capital dollars to purchase sensors and gateways. So the way that we structure our business model going forward is a managed service model. So what we tell the customers is you don't have to invest in any hardware. You're not going to own hardware. You don't have to manage or maintain anything. And we will just basically sell you a license to get access to the data. And depending on how many shipments or what you're operating, your scenario is, we will provide as much gateways and third-party sensors, if they want us to provide that, that's necessary to get the data that they need. So I kind of think of it kind of like the old Comcast model, where you're really paying for the service, but they provide you with a set-top box in the old days. So that's kind of the model that we've implemented.
Okay, Tim, how about you?
Yeah, we have a very similar model. We try not to burden our customers with massive upfront costs for gateways and even nanotags. And for our cold chain application, we actually charge on a cost per trip basis, because generally speaking, when we're talking about a chain, that means kind of the sensor isn't going to be living for that long. And because we specifically wanted our sensor, our nanotag, to be disposable and not require reverse logistics, we can't just, unlike Akua, we can't just only charge for the data, because we do have a cost of goods sold, and we expect pretty high turnover of nanotags in the near future. So we do generally charge on a cost per trip basis for that. Now, we have other customers that use our technology for asset monitoring, where the tags are living for years. In that case, we have the exact same model as Akua. We're just charging a subscription fee for usage of the platform, access to the data.
All right. And Mahesh, any thoughts? Because this is a question I'm sure a lot of people are asking themselves in terms of how they invest.
Yes, no, absolutely. I think both similar lines as Aqua and Tim from Nanotech is talking. We see both cases. In very large organizations, they start off with some sort of a managed service, but then very quickly move to one-time CapEx for any hardware purchases and really get their OpEx below, and it's per trip or per asset monitored. That's the model on the SaaS side. And then there are companies that want the entire thing almost like a sensor as a service or something, right? And bundled in with the reverse logistics and all that. So we're seeing both models. Depends on the scenario as Neil was talking about.
This one's an interesting question, so I'm going to throw it out to the audience. Do any of the presenters' companies have use cases where an OEM is implementing their tracking solution for upstream, if you will, components and supply versus the downstream that normally we would talk about, i.e. all the components that make up my finished good, if you will?
Yeah, very interesting one. I was thinking we came across that. If I may answer, Ken.
Please.
It's been a lot of, we see almost 1 to 10 distribution side versus the sourcing side, but since the pandemic has begun, we started to see a lot more upstream. This is one of the world's largest server manufacturers, and their challenge is missing estimated ship dates and revenue recognition and backlog end of the quarter. And if you peel that onion and dig through, it's visibility down the tier 1, 2, 3 suppliers on the parts and where is it. Because of the pandemic, it's kind of a multi-point failure. Routes changed, lanes changed, and sites changed on the supply side. How do you manage that visibility? So a very interesting problem. First one was more like what I discussed in our solution, to really create break down the internal data silos. It's not even fresh data, as Ben was talking. First, how do you marry their materials and planning systems to their order management systems and standing up almost a digital twin and a dashboard to get better visibility, right? So it's definitely become a hot topic, and our platform is being used in that situation there.
So, Neil, perhaps one for you. What is the advantage to track cargo using IoT sensors versus simply integrating data from EDI and carriers? And just coming in with an ancillary question asking, do all of you support APIs for ERP, WMS systems like SAP and Oracle? So, Neil, I'm going to ask you the double question, and then Mahesh and Tim, maybe you can give a quick answer at the end of that of the level of support you've got for open APIs.
Yeah, so one of the things that we found is we actually do, in our platform, when we do the analytics, we do actually ingest in EDI data from port carriers and things like that. And what we frequently found is that these systems that primarily rely on just EDI data or carrier data, we found that the data is not real time. So we actually can get a ping from the actual cargo that says it's left at port, and then maybe several hours or maybe a whole day later, then you'll get a message coming in from the carrier saying that the vessel has now left the port area. So really, it really comes down to how real time you want to see that data. So we still see, to have really real time data, you have to have the data coming from the actual cargo using sensors. In terms of the API, yes, we do provide APIs. We ingest information from existing systems, to, like bill of lading and electronic manifest data comes in, so we can understand the whole route of the international shipment. And then we also provide REST APIs, so the raw tracking data can be ingested out by other outside systems.
I'm sorry, Mahesh?
Yeah, Ken. So, yes, definitely. I think as Neil was talking, there are two sides to it. We don't deal as much with EDI signals. It's our signals come directly from the product or cargo as real-time signals, but we do integrate airway bills and bill of ladings, and as a master operating plan for a route is created, that's all ingested from SAP order management system. We are a approved vendor with SAP, all integrations into them for inventory and several different modules in SAP and so on one side. That's on the data ingestion side to build a digital twin and all that. And on the other side, our own platform offers, as I said in the presentation, about 400 plus APIs. So customers can integrate into all kinds of systems, WMS systems, TMS systems, ERP systems. So we are not yet creating another silo in that world, right? Because these are all systems of record, systems of transaction, and business still runs on them. So that's a mandatory feature for, I think, in this new world.
Very good. And Tim, sorry not to give you a chance, but we are up on time, so I'm going to have to cut this short. There were a lot more questions coming in, so we will try to get to those separately as well. So if you enjoyed this webinar, you'll enjoy our other thought leadership produced by, for, and about digital industry leaders. Lastly, just a big thank you to our speakers, Ben Tao, Mahesh Varina, Neil Furukawa, and Tim Williams, and our producers, Sandra Mueller and Sarah Joyce. So we look forward to seeing you all on our next webinar, and thank you and have a great day.